Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. We're here today with the High Elves, going to be taking them against the Dwarves. This is one of the matchups that you guys had disagreed with me pretty consistently on my tier list. And I do sort of see where you're coming from here. In particular, the danger for the Dwarfs is these guys, these nobles on chariots, of which I've got two. And more than that, single entity chariots are generally an issue for the dwarves. They do have some tools of dealing with them, but especially with Alariel here, healing single model chariots is just an absolute nightmare. We've also got some archers here out on the flanks. We've got some swordmasters, and on the other flank, the Pure Main Company. I think honestly probably swordmasters are a little bit better here, but I figured the Pure Main Company can get some synergy with the archers, potentially with the armor sundering. Probably not that great at the end of the day, but hey, it's fun to bring some of those fun regiments of renown sometimes. Speaking of which, this is probably one of the worst regiments of renown in the game, in my opinion. The gray here, the Regiment of Renown Shadow Walkers, they're very expensive for what they get, for what you get out of them, I should say. They have really low missile damage, considering the price that you pay, non-armor piercing. Granted, they do have stock and snipe, and also come with that Loic Shroud ability you just saw earlier. So basically, I've maneuvered them up into position, and since they have snipe, they can remain hidden while shooting. I was planning on sniping out some of these artillery pieces, potentially, because Dwarven artillery crews have very low armor. And of course, I'm going to be forced to advance into this kind of Helm's Deep position here. It's going to be pretty uncomfortable. Unfortunately, this cliff is a little bit in my way here, not really able to get in a position like I want to start firing. So I'm going to start advancing my main line here. Just kind of get the general engagement underway. The Grey are going to continue to fire in here, though. See if they can't take out some of these artillery crew. And yeah, just kind of pull some of my opponent's range units, pull his formation apart a little bit. Just try and stress out his micro as much as I can. As much as you can stress out a dwarf player's micro, but anyway. Swordmasters are going to be taking the brunt of those grudge throwers, as to be expected. They're the most expensive infantry unit on the game. So there are some raining down on the spearmen as well, but I'm not too worried about it at this point. One of these grudge throwers is just about already down from the Grey here, so they're actually doing decently in terms of paying for themselves. I mean, still a very expensive unit, but we'll see. Potentially they could have a role doing something like this. Yeah. Just kind of be a bit of a slow advance for the rest of the units. One thing you can do as well, and I've mentioned this in other matchups, but you can pull up with the archers in range to shoot at the artillery crews, and that's generally the best way of dealing with artillery is the High Elves here, but my opponent going to get these Slayers a little bit out of position here. I'm going to focus all my bows on them since they are completely exposed here, and of course without having any armor, they will take a ton of damage from those High Elf bows, so really nice situation for me. Meanwhile, the nobles on chariots starting to run a little bit of disruption here as we get into this tight little Dawi Helm's Deep. Yeah, there's plenty of dwarf warriors and quarrelers. Not too many armor-piercing units, though. I did have a nice banishment with Alariel there. I decided to bring banishment, even though it's probably better to just use all your magic for healing. But hey, it's nice to have some fun with some vortexes sometimes. And that definitely did a lot of damage to those two units of quarrelers that were kind of stacked on top of each other there. But yeah, so far that one grudge thrower is still online, and half the ammo of the Grey used on it. So yeah, probably a bit of mismicro by me using more ammo than was necessary there, but still not super sold just in terms of the damage to cost ratio there. Frontline engagement getting underway. The Noble Chariot will help support the Dwarf Warriors win, but otherwise Miners and Dwarf Warriors will actually do quite well here. Pure Main Company, meanwhile, out on the flanks, matched up against Dwarf Warriors. This is a great pick for me. Pure Main Company have much better stats here. We'll be able to quite handily win that, and the Swordmasters on the other side, despite having taken a lot of damage on the way in, the martial prowess is still active, and they are still just absolutely beating the brakes off of those Dwarf Warriors in the back there, so yeah. At this point, we're able to start disrupting this backline very effectively with the Noble Chariots and just really keep these Quarrelers from being able to fire very effectively. Not that they can really do a ton of DPS to the Noble Chariots anyway because of that 110 armor and the lack of good AP. I mean, Quarrelers have decent AP, don't get me wrong. They're no Thunderers by any means. So they're going to struggle to do that much damage to the Nobles here, and you can see exactly what I was mentioning earlier. The Archers pushed up, got rid of the cannon crews here, with a little bit of help from the Grey, I'll admit. But at this point, two of the three artillery crews are down. Unfortunately, my front line crumbled a little bit here. Miners getting into the back line to match up against High Elf archers, which is not great for me. But at the same time, we're generating some more value here, shooting at these Slayers. The Noble Chariots are pretty safe at this point. There's not really a lot that can do too much damage to them, so yeah, I'm pretty much safe to just completely cycle charge the rest of these Dwarf Warriors to death if I wanted to. But of course, we do have a more traditional combat going on here with these Swordmasters carving it up. And this is definitely what makes this matchup potentially rough for the Dwarves. I would need to play this myself a little bit more from the Dwarf side to really say whether I'm changing my mind on this matchup or not, but I do sort of see what people are going for here, more so than other matchups, even I would say more so than the Beastmen and Norska, just because, again, your single model chariots can heal really easily. You can take 2, and they're very good. I mean, they don't have the best AP values in the world when compared to, like, Norskin chariots or, you know, the chariots for the Beastmen, the pig chariots. But because of the healing, you have the potential to get a lot more damage out of them. And, you know, the High Elves likewise have really good tools of dealing with gyrocopters, probably more so than, much more so, I would say, than either of the 2 factions I mentioned, Norska or Beastmen. So, honestly, I think that High Elves might be the tough matchup for the Dwarves. Again, I would need to play for myself a bit and see. I do think that this build is maybe not the best. I mean, I do see what he was going for there, but in my opinion, you've got to have some Thunderers and probably some, what are they called? The Trollhammer torpedoes here. They can do a ton of burst damage to these nobles, potentially. We'll talk more about that in just a minute here, but you can see Belagar Ironhammer holding out against the few Swordmasters that remain. These Swordmasters are quite tattered, barely holding their leadership together, but we do drop a Star of Averlorn here to help them stay in the fight. Noble's also going to charge out those Quarrelers, so it's just the Swordmasters now standing in the light, getting bathed in healing. Grey have used up all of their ammo and probably didn't get their cost back, but still, we're going to send them into melee. They technically have good stats on paper, but they're probably not going to hold up super well against these Quarrelers in melee. As for the rest of my army, a lot of my units very tattered. The Pure Main Company had overchased pretty badly and are just now getting back into the fight here to match up against this last cannon crew. Say last cannon crew, that Grudge Thrower just got a really nice point-blank shot through the side of the unit, but Pure Main Company and Swordmasters together just finishing off this last unit of Dwarf Warriors. And that's going to be pretty much it for the Dwarves. They've got a few units that are going to hold out some more, but at this point, it's really not looking great. I mean, the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass have been able to get some good work done. A lot of my archers took some damage, but you can see they've all rallied at this point. They're able to now come in and get a nice crossfire. I mean, there's still all these Pure Main Company, Alariel and the 2 chariots, of course, all still very healthy. So yeah, I mean, Alariel's up to her healing cap, but she's been able to get up to her healing cap quite easily. There's never really been any risk of me losing her. She's just kind of been tanking the damage over time. And Alariel is a tank. Honestly, I do think that they should nerf her melee defense a bit. She's got some of the best melee defense for any caster character in the game, so yeah, I'm not the biggest fan, but anyway. In terms of the breakdown here, you can see both the Noble Chariots doing some very heavy lifting in terms of kills. Same thing with the Pure Main Company Swordmasters to be a bit more expected there, but the Archers also generated some really nice value here. Honestly, with the Grey, it's better off to just bring more volume of fire with Archers and just march forward and take the hits, rather than trying to do funny stuff with stock and snipe and everything with the Grey. I really think that for the cost, they should look at maybe giving the Grey additional missile damage over regular Shadow Warriors. I'm not really sure. I'm planning on doing a top 5 worst regiments of renown video soon, and spoiler alert, these guys will probably be on that list, but anyway. As for my opponent's build, Belagar's nice here. I'm not the biggest fan. I think there are potentially other lords, and this is a lot of Quarrelers. 6 unit of Quarrelers is pretty heavy. This matchup, I do think that you need to bring the armor-piercing missiles. So if we go ahead and have a look at Dwarfs here. So, as I mentioned, Iron Drakes are really good here. It's really risky to bring Gyro Bombers. Brimstone Guns, I mean, your High Elf opponent is unlikely to bring Dragon Princes, but it's worth noting that Brimstone Guns do fire damage, and if your opponent brings Dragon Princes, of course, they have high fire resistance, so just don't shoot Dragon Princes with Brimstone Guns. But anyway, going back to this, just in general, I mean, Alariel has Tempest. They have lots of really good missile units that can shoot up in the air at much longer range than your Gyros. So Gyros are just really risky to bring here. Personally, I would say going with something like this, like maybe 2-3 cannons, a couple of Iron Drakes, and then we're also going to grab some Thunderers as well, maybe 3 or 4 Thunderers. It's going to leave us relatively light in the front line, but Dwarf Warriors and Miners can hold up for some time. And probably going to want at least the Dragonback Slayers to apply speed debuffs. This is honestly a lot of unit slots here. There's some different things you can do for Lord choice. Rune Lord's not a bad idea. Just for the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, so you can get a compound slow effect. So we're a little bit over on cost here. I might cheap some of these miners out. I don't know. Miners against the High Elves are a little bit rough. They can do well against things like Spearmen, but yeah, maybe I'd cut one of these cannons actually. Let's grab those miners back, and then, well, actually maybe we grab a second Rune Priest here for the second slow effect. That way you can potentially layer these two on top of each other. And then from there, honestly, I might cut one of these Thunderers and just grab a second unit of Slayers to give me a little bit more anti-large. I think something like this is going to be more effective against the High Elves. You're just going to need, your #1 target priority is absolutely the Chariots. If Olario comes into range of the guns and you can get a good opportunity to take her down, absolutely try and do so. But I would just say, generally, I think this is going to work a little bit better. Again, I would need to play this matchup a little bit myself to try and see, how well it would work. But just sort of some thoughts for you Dawi players out there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.